And yeah, I do see mistakes that a lot of people make.
Because always see too many people, even some with sub-hour or lower, just get really lazy when it comes to mashing.
I see people even like with sub-hour that like just slack off, like stand back and like they're just mashing, like very laid back. Let's say like that. For example, for tag smashing, they just press A. They just press A mildly fast, I guess, like this, and then like they call it a day.
A lot of people assume since it's not movement, there's not much time to save from it, so it's not worth learning a faster way of mashing, but they're honestly completely wrong.
The scrimmage, I just play when I'm in it, trying to run it till the ribbon, and they know that I've been tripping when I make them see the vision, man. I put them in the prison with these bars that I've been spitting, and this life that I've been living, I'ma go, I'm on a mission.
Welcome to our first special episode of Change of Pace. I'm Denster, and today we are going to have a quick digression on a topic that is way more important than you might think. Button mashing, menuing, and cutscene skips make up a huge part of the run. And therefore, small improvements and optimizations can save you way more time than most of the tricks and movement explained in this series.
It's like learning all of left side, salt triple, and flower road skip at once, which are all tricks that I see people at a 104 level or even higher do. But it's easier to learn mashing and it has no risk of time loss attached to attempting it early.
Around 100 level, I really started paying attention to my cutscene skips. And yeah, I started saving time, and it felt very good because I felt it was free.
I can't tell you how much time exactly you lose compared to runners like Tyron or Heythere. How good or bad mashing is can differ a lot from person to person, but already a few months ago, Lupus made an attempt to find out how much time runners of our highest pace lose to the world record or BTT mashing. And as you can tell from this, it's a lot. On average, they lost 14 seconds to the world record at the time and 23 seconds to the quote-unquote perfect mashing. You will have a hard time finding many tricks in any percent that save this much time, and you might not even find a single one that you're not already doing. So now that you're hopefully convinced that you should work on your mashing, let's get into it. We won't have multiple paces for this, since I consider this basic knowledge that every runner should know about. Let's look at menuing first. In any percent, this is pretty much only useful for selecting sand and for shops. One thing that a lot of people don't know about is that you can also use the D-pad for this. You might think it doesn't make a difference, but I find it easier to time the input at the right time. Also, for other categories where you have to maneuver more than one step, it's easier to mash a button than awkwardly pushing the control stick back and forth. So I definitely recommend getting used to this method. The only other thing I can tell you about menuing is that you try to input it as early as possible. Pretty obvious. Alright, let's look at button mashing next. There are multiple ways of doing it and everyone has different preferences, so we will look at some of them. Generally speaking, it comes down to three things. Technique, which involves what fingers you use and how you hold the controller, the general finger movement, and focus. Yes, believe it or not, good mashing requires focus. This is the part which is the same no matter what technique you use. For the rest, you have to find out what works best for you. Here are some ways of doing it.
I basically take my right thumb and I put it on A, okay? And then I put my left index finger from my left hand on B. And then I start mashing like this.
I do what a lot of people call jitter clicking, which involves vibrating your arm to mash. The way I do it specifically is I have my left and right thumbs in a set position, and I rest both of them on B and A respectively. Then I start vibrating my left arm, which makes my right Joy-Con vibrate, and if I start pushing my thumb slightly, my right thumb slightly on the A button, that makes my right arm seem like it's vibrating too, and it starts spamming on the A button, which gives me a combined total of around 20 clicks per second. It's a bit harder to do on the Pro controller since I use detached Joy-Cons, but it still works if you have your hands in the right position.
I myself lay my controller on my lap, holding it with the palm of my left hand as well as my middle and ring finger. Next, I put my right index finger on A and my left index finger on B. Once the text comes up, I alternate my button mashing to get a maximum of button presses. I use my index fingers because those are the fingers I can move up and down the quickest. If you decide to use cramping as a method, make sure to not harm yourself with it. If it hurts, don't do it, or otherwise you will probably regret it. If it works for you, but you don't want to do it all the time, you can also just do it on PB pace to not go too hard on your arms and hands. Now that you know how to mash fast, let's have a look at when to use it, because in some parts it's actually dangerous to mash both A and B and you want to refrain from doing so. For the mashing in the world selection, pressing B can send you back to the kingdom you're currently in. You should still mash both buttons, but make sure to stop mashing B when you get to the final text box. Same goes for shops. Remember how many text boxes there are and then only spam A once you get to the last one. Also, if you focus on it, you will get used to different mashing patterns throughout the run. For instance, the amount and length of the text boxes inside the Odyssey is very different when going to Sand compared to other kingdoms. It's hard to explain, but it feels a bit like you adjust your mashing speed to that with experience. When you get to the end of the button mashing, move one finger to the plus button.
I completely switch, so I do like this. I basically grab my controller like this, and I place my left thumb on plus, and then I mash A with my right thumb.
I just keep mashing / fighting my arm, but I switch my left thumb to the plus button as fast as possible, right after the last text box is filled out. You don't have to worry about pausing or anything like that, so you don't really have to worry about timing anything.
I switch my left index finger to A and my right index finger to plus. This way I can still mash with my index fingers, so I get the maximum speed out of it. Once the cutscene starts, I start mashing plus as fast as possible. Then I listen to a sound cue which happens once you're able to skip the cutscene to start mashing A. For the cutscene skips, spamming A is possible, but timing just a single A press can actually be more consistent for some people if they get used to doing that. The timing is the same for every cutscene, so having a feeling when to press A after the skip message appears can be very fast. To be on the safe side, you can also do a double click in case your first A press is slightly too early. In any percent, there are around 80 cutscene skips, so if you improve them by just 3 frames on average, you can already save multiple seconds.
With Odyssey, you really lose a lot of time to like the smallest of things, and like at top level it really matters. Like cutscene skips at top level are insanely important.
For that, it's also crucial that you pay attention to when cutscenes start to trigger. Especially for cutscenes mid-movement, be aware when they will start playing and already have a finger on plus when that happens. If you do that, it's not even necessary to spam plus. You can just double-click the moment the cutscene begins. But doing more than 2 presses to make sure also works, of course. Try to experiment with it when to skip the cutscene. Normally, you can already do the first plus press very shortly before the cutscene triggers. There is some risk of pausing though, so get used to the right timing. If you're now wondering how to practice mashing, that is obviously not that simple. You can load a file and go to the next kingdom a few times, but if you really want to improve on mashing, that's probably not really necessary. Just find a way to have decently fast mashing speed with your fingers and then start focusing on what was explained in this video. Start counting text boxes and remember when cutscenes trigger. Pay attention to mashing, be aware of the time save you can get from it, and you will improve. In the end, mashing is about practice just like every other part of the run. And that's all we have about this topic. Thanks a lot to Tyron and Heythere for sharing their thoughts and tips. Make sure to check them out and follow them if you haven't. Links are in the video description. Also, we would be happy if you would like the video and share your thoughts on mashing in the comments. Thanks as always to Eden, Flavien and Lupus for working on this video with me. I'm Danster and I'm gonna break my wrists while skipping cutscenes now. See you next time for Change of Pace for Wooded.